What's up, guys? What's going on? I'm Paul. This is Pauline Theology's daily devotional, man, and we are going through the book of Exodus. We are in Exodus chapter 5, verse 1 through 3. Exodus chapter 5, verse 1 through 4. So what we're going to have here, which is going to be cool and unique, is that a back and forth between the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, and Moses. And this is unique because I guess it's not really unique because it's going to show sometimes how we act and then how people respond to the way we act. And then how we respond to the way that people act. That's what we're going to talk about here. But we're not going to do it in, this is going to be a little 3-part kind of thing, a 4-part kind of thing. I haven't decided it's 3 or 4, but we're going to go through these verses, but I wanted to go through all of these verses as a whole so we can see the big picture and then break them down. And so if you haven't yet, go ahead and read chapter 5, verses 1 through 4. Chapter 5, verses 1 through 4. Stop that tape, see what that word has to say, come back, and then we're going to answer these questions. If you've already read it, then let's wait no further. Let's go ahead and jump into it, man. What's going on is the first question we ask. What's happening? Well, Moses goes to Pharaoh. We're back into the midst of it, back into the jump, man, right where all of the action is about to happen. We took those detours, got some of the little details, kind of some theology behind it, and some action. Now we're coming back to the main story of the book. Moses goes before Pharaoh. He's doing what God has called him to do finally, after speaking with the elders, talking with his brother Aaron, and now they're in front of Pharaoh. He's got an audience with Pharaoh. And what does he say? He says, "Let my people go. Let my people go." You know, I think I haven't seen the movie. I should watch it sometime, man. But the 10 Commandments, man, is like, it's always, that is the thing he says. He proclaims it. Let my people go. A command that he gives to Pharaoh. Well, and then he says, "Let my people go." But he also says, so that we can have a festival to the Lord in the wilderness. That we can have a festival to the Lord in the wilderness. And guess what Pharaoh has to say, man? He says, no. But he says it in a way to give himself this clout or this power. He says, "Who is this Yahweh that I might hear his voice or obey his voice?" Who is this Yahweh? I don't know. I don't know who this dude is. He's like, so, bro, I ain't letting them people go. I am not letting them go. And then he says this, and then Moses says this. He says, "Let us go." Or actually, first he says who the Lord is. He says, "That's the God of our fathers, the servants. He met with us. So please, let us go a 3 days journey into the wilderness that we might sacrifice to our God." But then he ends with this. He says, "For our God, lest he put pestilence on us or the sword." And then after he says that, then the king of Egypt says, "Dude, why you stopped your brothers from working, man?" He's like, "Dude, why have you stopped them from your labor? Go back and do your work, man. Go back and get to work." So the thing about this is, in verse 1, Moses, he says with a command, "Let my people go." He's like, "Yeah, I got all the power of God behind me. I'm going to get up there and I'm going to demand that he let us go so that we can have a festival, a party in the wilderness, man." See, but that wasn't what God told him to do. And so Pharaoh, he comes at him and says, "Man, I don't know this God you talk about. I don't know this Yahweh. I don't know who he is, man." He's like, "I'm the supreme God around here." So now we got a boastful Pharaoh. He says, "So I'm not letting your people go. They ain't going nowhere." And then Moses comes back and is like, "Well, maybe I should try saying the thing that God told me to say rather than my own words." And so he actually says everything almost verbatim that God had told him to say originally. He actually, God, it's so cool because God was actually being nice to Pharaoh. He says, so please let us go a 3 days journey that we might sacrifice to our God. Now he says those things, but then he adds this little bit because I think whenever Pharaoh asserts himself as the God, that he says because our God, he's gonna give us pestilence and the sword. So we got to go. Let us go so that we don't get punished by our God. Essentially, is what he's saying. And then Pharaoh's like, ha ha, now I know that I am the one. I think this is kind of, he's like, yeah, obviously their God is going to do something to them. He's like, dude, I'm going to tell them I have the power. I have the power. And so he's like, man, get back to work. Get back to work, bro. He says, all that stuff you claim and talking about, you boasting, now you saying please. Get back to work, man. Get back to work. So, what is this saying about God? Well, I think it says that God uses us in his overarching plan to achieve the purposes that he is called to purpose, whether it be our good or our bad. Because what God said was that Pharaoh wasn't going to let him go, right? He said Pharaoh was going to have a hard head in the matter. He wasn't going to listen. And he uses Moses' own boasting to do so. Because Moses, knowing he has the power of God behind him, doesn't do what he is told to do, but kind of like does what he wants because he knows, whenever, you got I can't remember if it was like a show or something, but there's like a little dog barking, boop, 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 talking noise and all that stuff because he got big homie behind him, man, taking care of him. And so Moses goes to Pharaoh and talking all this noise because he got big homie back there, Yahweh. But see, God told him to say something specific, and he didn't do it. And because of that, because of the overarching plan of God, Pharaoh shows his hardness, and he's like, who is this Yahweh that's trying to demand of me something when I'm the God in this area? When I'm the king in this area? Who is it? I don't know. So I ain't going to listen to him, man. I ain't letting you go. You my people. And then Moses comes back because he hears that. He's like, oh, man, maybe I should just do what God says instead of making up my own thing. Even though I have God's power behind me, maybe I should just do what God says. And he comes back with what he's supposed to say. But then he still has a little fear of Pharaoh. And so he adds that little caveat and says that because our God is what could be seen as a punishing or vindictive God. And if we don't do what he says, he's going to punish us. When God never said anything about it. Matter of fact, he said he's going to punish Pharaoh for not letting him go. And then we got Pharaoh's response to that. It's like, yeah, that's what I thought. Get back to work. You see, God uses Moses' hubris and pride in order to cause the hardness of the heart of Pharaoh. God uses us to do these things. It's crazy, huh? That's because he knows everything, man. He plans everything and works everything according to his will. That's who our God is. This is one that knows, sees, and plans. What's this say about man? I think it says that once we feel like we got the power, we think we can do it on our own, right? So even though he is doing the will of God and going before Pharaoh, he's doing it by his own power, thinking that he can do what he wants rather than the thing that God had actually told him to do. You see, Pharaoh goes before God, or God goes before Moses, goes before Pharaoh and tells him the desire of God, but not in the way that God desires him to tell him. You ever done that before, huh? Ever done that? You know that you're supposed to do something and so you do it, but you do it in your own way, your own power. Well, it didn't work. It didn't work. And it won't work. It didn't work for Moses. And if you did it on your own, it didn't work for you. And it ain't going to work for me. That just ain't how things work, man. When God calls us to do something, we're supposed to do that which he called us to do. We're supposed to do what he said. And then I think this is another thing we can see from Pharaoh, man, is that he's like, I don't know this God. I'm God. I don't know this Yahweh. I'm God. And because I call myself God, I will do what I want. That's how all of our lives are. We place ourselves as God and sit on the throne rather than the one who properly deserves it. That's how we all are. Until the power of God, until the strong hand of God breaks ours. And then we become trusters of him. So how do we apply these truths in our lives, man? I think first off, we just recognize the movement and the behind the scenes work that God has and is doing. I mean, everything that happens, even in our mess ups, even in our sinfulness, even in our brokenness, God uses those things and transforms and creates plans and things that we could have never imagined to bring his name glory and our good. And he does it here as Moses does what he does, man. It looks like it's all bad, but God has a plan. Matter of fact, he disclosed that plan to Moses beforehand. Now, he doesn't always do that for us, but that's what we need to remember, is that even if we don't see to the other side, we know that God, in all of his goodness, all of his love, and all of his understanding, his omnipotence, his power, his planning, is moving for his glory to showcase his name to the world, but for our good. What's going on in your life right now where you need to remember this? What's occurring in your life right now that you need to remember this? I want to encourage you to remember that God's plan is perfect, even when we are not. I appreciate you guys for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.